Anyone that wishes to have power over others, anyone that can do things to people and have no empathy for the consequences, is themselves in a tiny box of perception. What the Illuminati and what the manipulators have done, and they've done it brilliantly, I have to say, because they may not be wise, but they are clever on an intellectual level. Cleverness without wisdom is the most destructive force on earth. That's why we are in such a state that we're in. You know, it's very clever to know how to build an atomic bomb, but it's not wise to do so. There is a difference between cleverness and wisdom. But on an intellectual level, they're very clever. And what they've done is manipulate humanity through the suppression of knowledge and these other means into a smaller box than they're in. But we have the potential to get out of the box. Well, they have the potential too, but far less potential because they're so caught in this mentality that they're in of control. And what is control? Control is massive, massive insecurity. That's what these people are, the Illuminati and these reptilian entities and all the rest. They are consumed by insecurity and fear themselves. That's why they know how to manipulate fear and insecurity so well, because they're connected to it so powerfully. People who are insecure want to control everything because they're not secure enough within themselves just to go with the flow of life and see where it goes. Secure people don't need control over other people. Insecure people do. And I use this analogy a lot because it really kind of encapsulates it for me. Our natural state is not what we have been experiencing in known human history anyway. Our natural state is where we're going, and more people are opening up to. And I use this analogy like the natural state of a ball is floating on the top of the water, floating on the top of the tank or whatever. To keep it in an unnatural state, you have to push it down to the bottom of the water. I mean, you can't let it go. You have to constantly hold it there. And that's why, as I've been describing today, and I could describe a lot more, we have been subjected to multi-levels of suppression and manipulation from the things we eat, the electromagnetic fields we come into contact with, the way that we're manipulated through words, etc., and religion and belief systems. All those things are necessary to hold us in an unnatural state of being unconscious. And why are all those things necessary? Because we are amazing, infinite, eternal genius. And we've been held in this unnatural state. But, like I say, if you're going to hold the ball in the unnatural state, you've got to hold it there. Because the moment you let it go, woof, it's in its natural state, because that's where it will gravitate to immediately. And the moment we throw off the chains and the shackles of this manipulation and of this misunderstanding of who we are and where we are, then as we break those chains, those vibrational chains, we are going to become conscious by definition, because that's what we are. You know, people think, I've got to seek enlightenment. No. We are enlightened. That's our natural state.
The law of awareness says you must know yourself to grow yourself. James Russell Lowell, in your notes, no one can produce great things who is not thoroughly sincere in dealing with himself. What a powerful statement that is. You and I need to become aware of who we are, and we need to know what our passion is. We need to know what our purpose is. When people talk about themselves and trying to find themselves, I immediately talk to them about what is your passion, what is your purpose. Let me kind of walk you through this kind of quickly of how to figure this out, because this is so important in your awareness. The first question I would ask you about your passion is, do you like what you're doing now? Surprisingly, the majority of the people, when I ask them that question, say no. And this amazes me. I'll be just having a conversation. Hey, do you like your job? You know what? Most people say they don't. And sometimes they'll even look at me and say, well, you know, I don't really care for my job. What would you advise me to do? And then they don't like my advice, because when somebody tells me they don't like their job, I just immediately say, well, I'd quit. I have no idea. Now, please, maybe some of you can help me in the audience today. I have no idea why somebody would do something every day that they didn't like. This is beyond me. Why would a person go and do a job that they don't like and complain about it all day and call it life? And to be honest with you, I don't want to work beside them either. because it's bad enough for them to be miserable in their doing, but when they're miserable in what they're doing, guess what they do to you? They make you miserable. Haven't you just been beside miserable before? You know what I'm saying? You kind of felt good, but by the end of the day, you felt bad. And you said, well, what did I do to feel bad? You sat with that person. You know what I'm saying? So when people say, well, I don't like my job, what kind of advice do you give me? This is an IQ test. Quit. Why would you, I'm still, it's beyond me. Why would you every day do something what is your passion? And yet I know people who literally spend their whole life, no wonder people look forward to retirement. They can hardly wait to get out. It's almost like prison. They're going to be free at last. The second question is, what would you like to do? Because there is a relationship between finding your passion and reaching your potential. That's a fact. What would you like to do? Let me just, since we're talking about personal growth, say that if you would have known me when I was in school, junior high and high school, I tell parents all the time, when parents are worried about their kids because their kids just seem to be goofing off, and they say, boy, my kids just don't seem to be buckling down. I always say, just relax, take a pill. Because if they would have seen me as a kid, as a parent, they would be greatly encouraged. Because when I went to school, it was nothing but party. There was one wonderful thing about school was your friends. And I had a whole bunch of friends. And I didn't do studies. My study hall was going around visiting my friends. That was kind of like fellowship time for me. And I was playing ball and I was enjoying myself. And I didn't get good grades. And I just basically, I was smart enough to wing it and get through high school. If you just hang in and breathe, you get there. You know what I'm talking about. So it's not like a huge accomplishment. It's, can you just stick around long enough? They'll pass you. They kind of pass you up. You know what I mean? And my dad and I, we had these long talks. My dad and I have these long talks. He said, John, you just don't seem to be disciplined. You don't seem to be focused. You just want to play ball and be with your friends. And you're right. And I wasn't. When I went to college, it turned around immediately. Because when I went to college, I was going to get a do now and study for something I wanted to go do. And immediately I made the dean's list. Immediately I disciplined myself. Immediately I started studying. Wasn't really any problem. But can I tell you something? The reason I didn't do it in high school is because I wasn't getting what I wanted to get to go where I really wanted to go. In the moment, me being pragmatic, that I found that I got the subjects down, I could study, they were going to prepare me for the ministry, I got all excited, passionate, the whole process. So you got to ask yourself, what would you like to do? Because when you find what you'd like to do, that ignites your passion. And when your passion is ignited, that begins to increase your potential. That's when you start moving up the potential.
Consciousness is not an object. You could never say, there it is. That's actually, Jesus said literally when they asked, when does the kingdom of heaven come, or where is it? Kingdom of the sky. You can never say, there it is, or it's over there. That's what he literally said. So you can't say the consciousness. This is the analogy. The sky is the consciousness. Not the only place where it's used. It's also used sometimes in Chinese, ancient Chinese spirituality, philosophy, Taoism, and so on. The heaven, the sky, the vastness of it. But it is intangible. It does not exist in the same way that consciousness does not exist. Because exist, that word means ex is from the Latin out. Ist comes to stand. It stands out. Something that exists stands out into this world. It projects itself into this dimension. But the sky does not exist because you can never find it. And the consciousness does not exist in the way that something out here exists. It is the ground for existence. It is the being before the being becomes something. So there is being and there is existence. The being, very different. It sounds almost like an obscure existentialist treatise, being and existence. But that is why people like Jesus used the sky as the closest he could get to explaining what the unconditioned consciousness is. And so when you look at the sky, the equivalent of the vast emptiness or spaciousness of the clear sky is your inner spaciousness or emptiness. And you can never say, it can never become an object. For yourself, in the same way as I see the table, or there, I'm now aware of the consciousness. You can't be aware of the consciousness because the awareness is it. So there's no duality. You can't make it into an object. And that means when you are rooted in that dimension within yourself, that is very different from the form identity, the egoic identity. In the egoic identity, you have made yourself into an object of consciousness, starting with, as we mentioned the other day, the pool of water in which Narcissus saw himself, the ancient myth. And so that was the beginning of human consciousness forming an image of itself and mistaking the mental image for who you are.